The research station on Kepler 442b hummed with its usual nocturnal rhythm when Orla realized her backup goggles were missing. Not the standard issue ones. Those hung around her neck, but her grandmother's aviation goggles. The ones that had survived Earth's third migration and meant more to her than any piece of equipment in the lab. "James, have you seen my goggles?" she called across the xenobiology wing, trying to keep the panic from her voice. James looked up from his microscope, his weathered face creasing with concern. "The old leather ones." "Not since yesterday. You had them in the observation dome." Orla's stomach tightened. The observation dome opened directly to the planet's surface where the indigenous species, the Kree, lived in their sprawling underground colonies. She'd been studying a juvenile Kree yesterday, a small furry creature no bigger than a house cat, with 6 legs and eyes that reflected light like mirrors. The colonists called them cubs, though they were nothing like Earth's bears. "I need to find them," Orla said, already moving toward the airlock. "Those goggles are irreplaceable." "It's night cycle," James warned, following her. "The Kree are more active now. And you know the protocol." "I know the protocol." Orla pulled on her environmental suit with practiced efficiency. "But those goggles belonged to my grandmother. She wore them when she piloted the colony ship through the Scorpius Belt. They're all I have left of her." James sighed, a sound that spoke of decades spent alongside stubborn humans who valued sentiment over safety. "Then I'm coming with you." The surface of Kepler 442b glowed with bioluminescent flora, casting everything in shades of blue and violet. Orla activated her helmet's thermal imaging as they approached the observation dome. The transparent structure stood like a bubble on the planet's surface, and through it she could see her workstation, but no goggles. "They were right there," she muttered, scanning the ground around the dome's exterior entrance. Then she saw it. A small tunnel entrance recently disturbed leading down into the Kree warrens. "No," James said flatly, reading her intention. "Absolutely not. We don't enter their colonies. That's the first rule of xenobiology on this planet. That cub I was observing yesterday," Orla said slowly. "It was fascinated by the goggles, kept reaching for them through the dome's barrier." "What if it took them?" "Then they're gone, Orla. Kree cubs are curious, but their parents are protective. We've maintained peace with them for 5 years by respecting boundaries." Orla stood at the tunnel entrance, torn between wisdom and longing. Her grandmother had survived impossible odds to bring humanity to this corner of space. Those goggles represented human resilience, the refusal to give up even when the universe seemed intent on grinding them down. "I'm going in," she decided. "Stay here. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, call it in." Before James could protest, she dropped into the tunnel. The Kree warrens were masterworks of natural engineering. Tunnels reinforced with a resin the creatures secreted, walls that seemed to breathe with the planet's own rhythm. Orla's helmet lights cast dancing shadows as she crawled deeper, following the scuff marks that might have been made by a curious cub dragging something leather. The tunnel opened into a chamber, and Orla froze. 3 Kree cubs lay in a pile, their bodies rising and falling in synchronized sleep. Their fur rippled with colors that indicated contentment, deep purples and soft greens. And they're cradled in the center of their sleeping pile, protected as if it were a precious egg were her grandmother's goggles. Orla's breath caught. The cubs had taken the goggles not to destroy them, but to keep them safe. In Kree culture, as she'd learned from months of observation, young ones often gathered objects of significance to their colony and guarded them together. They'd recognized the goggles as something important, something worth protecting. The cub's breathing created a soft snoring sound, a whistle purr that echoed in the chamber. Orla knew she could simply take the goggles and leave. The cubs wouldn't wake, but something stopped her. Instead, she carefully removed one of her equipment patches from her suit, a small badge marking her as a xenobiologist from the human colony. She placed it gently next to the goggles, an offering, a trade. Then she retrieved her grandmother's goggles, noting how the cubs had positioned them carefully, the lenses unscratched, the leather untorn. They had treated them with reverence. As she backed out of the chamber, one cub's eye opened, that mirror-like surface reflecting her helmet light. They regarded each other for a long moment. Then the cub's eye closed again and its snoring resumed. Orla emerged from the tunnel to find James pacing anxiously. "I was about to call it in," he said, relief flooding his face. Then he saw the goggles in her hand. "You actually found them?" "The cubs were guarding them," Orla said, her voice thick with emotion. "They recognized them as valuable, James. They were protecting them like treasure." James examined the goggles, noting their pristine condition. "Remarkable. This changes our understanding of their cognitive development." But Orla was looking back at the tunnel entrance, thinking of 3 cubs sleeping peacefully, now guarding a human xenobiologist's badge with the same care they'd shown her grandmother's goggles. Humans had come to Kepler 442b as explorers, as survivors carrying their history and their treasures across impossible distances. And here they'd found creatures who understood the value of such things, who recognized that some objects carried meaning beyond their physical form. Her grandmother had flown through asteroid fields and solar storms wearing those goggles. Now they'd been honored by an alien species humanity was only beginning to understand. "Come on," James said gently. "Let's get back before the day shift thinks we've been adopted by the Kree." Orla smiled, sliding the goggles carefully into her equipment pouch. "You know what this means, don't you? The Kree don't just collect shiny objects. They understand sentimentality. They recognize emotional significance." "Another reason humanity chose well when we settled here," James agreed. As they walked back to the research station under the bioluminescent sky, Orla thought about the badge she'd left behind, and the bridge it might build between species. Her grandmother had crossed stars to give humanity a future. Perhaps those goggles had crossed one more barrier, the space between human and alien understanding. Behind them, in the warrens below, 3 cubs snored peacefully, now guarding a new treasure, one that marked the beginning of something greater than either species could yet imagine.